let's go into the review tab. And I just want to talk about some of the search basics. You might have noticed as we've gone through and kind of been clicking into different places within here, whenever we end up in the grid view, there is a search syntax up here. It depends on what we've clicked into so far. So the general rule of thumb when it comes to creating your searches is going to be field name : value. And that's typically like if I were to click into, let's say, Albert Myers email, it builds out that search syntax, the field name being folder, : an exact match, quote, for Albert Myers email being the search here. But I could customize this and say, I'm looking for a folder, and whenever I put in that parentheses, it says, okay, well, here are the folders that we have available. And you could go ahead and search for these, but as you start typing out what it is, it says, oh, there's only 2 that start with that. And then you could go ahead and run a search there. So next point actually operates on Boolean search logic, which we've touched on, if you recall, in Ediscovery 101 when talking about search terminology. And if you're not familiar with it, you are in some respects, because we use Boolean search logic on the regular whenever we run a Google search in our regular everyday lives. We just might not know that we are using those connectors, or they're using the connectors on the back end for us. And so what I want to show you real quickly, and I'll make sure to use this in the follow-up email, but if I click on the Next Point Support logo up here on the right-hand side, one of the articles that I really like is, if I search for search, is this Next Point search guide that takes you through the basics of Boolean search and what fields you can use when running searches within Next Point. And so I just want to show you the operating hierarchy here, that those 3 connectors that we use, not, and or. Not is going to be greater than and trump and, which is going to be greater than and trump or. So whenever you're building out your searches, just make sure that we're using parentheses when applicable to make sure that we are building out the search that, in fact, we do want to run. It's kind of like, if you guys recall, PEMDAS, the Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, back in math class back in the day, where we had to, parentheses comes first, then exponents, multiplication, division, and addition, subtraction. So not is greater than and is greater than or. So we'll keep an eye on that as we start to build out our own searches. And can be noted by and in all caps, or a plus sign, or all caps, or anything within these parentheses will be denoted by an or that is kind of invisible. And we'll point that out when it shows up, and not in all caps or a minus sign. We'll go through proximity searches and exact matches and wildcards as we go through this. But I just wanted to show you that there's all these lists of general metadata fields that you can use to search on. So you can see author, : Smith at Next Point, document date, document type. You'll notice that if there's more than one word in the field value or in the field name, that it is denoted, the space is denoted by a underscore instead of a space. So file underscore extension : whatever it is that you wanted to do, Excel, Word doc, whatever it is. Here's an additional, some email specific metadata that you can search on: email author, recipients, which is going to include anyone who is CC'd or be CC'd on that communication, domain, more specifically sender domain or receiver domain, and document metadata. So there's a bunch of stuff in here that you can use, and which is why I always recommend starting here if you're trying to learn Boolean search logic. So I will, again, make sure to copy or send a link to the Next Point search guide within the follow-up so you can take a look at that as well. So as we're going through here, just remember that general rule of thumb, field name, colon, value as we're running these searches. If I'm running searches up here, we're going to run a bunch of different searches. But if I wanted to run a search for the word deal, these are the 176 documents that hit on the word deal. Okay, there we go. So that is searching on that word deal within the searchable text or within the metadata. And we can see that the Elasticsearch is actually showing us the documents it thinks is the most relevant based on the word deal showing up in the document titles. A new gas deal, Texaco, Citizens Gas deal, deal. But like if I start scrolling down and keep working my way through, we can see that these ones don't have it in the document title, but it's somewhere within the searchable text. So let's go ahead and use some of those connectors. So if I wanted to say, let's go with the words deal or booked. So this is going to be more expansive. We're going to have more than 176. We've got 187 documents that hit on the word deal or the word booked. And that's important to note because some people might say, if I'm running a search and I say, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, the more ands that you add, the more narrow your search, more specific you're going to get, and the fewer results you're going to get, because it needs to meet each and every one of those criteria for it to show up as a result. Whereas the or is going to be more expansive. It could hit on the word deal, or if it doesn't hit on that, it could hit on the word booked, or it could have both. But if you needed it to be both, you would switch it for an and. And there are 5 documents that hit on the word deal and booked. But if you wanted to be even more specific, if you need the exact phrase deal booked, the exact phrase is going to be in quotation marks. And here we only have 2 documents that match that. Let me show real quickly that deal or booked a different way within parentheses that denotes the or. So we get those 187 again. Another search that I want to introduce you to is what we call a wild card search. And so some people or some systems use an exclamation point as a wild card. We use an asterisk or a star. And so essentially what this says is the asterisk means anything and can be used in multiple different ways. So when I hit asterisk and then hit or star or whatever you want to call it, or wild card and then hit search, it's saying I'm looking for anything and everything. So we're looking at all 4,301 documents within this database at this moment based on this search syntax. But this wildcard can be added to a bunch of different, in a bunch of different ways. So let's say I search for the word train, for the term train. We've got 5 documents that match for train. But if I were to add a wildcard at the end, this is going to say I'm looking for the word train or anything that as a suffix that comes after train. So I'm looking for train, training, trainer, trained. But instead of having those 5 documents that hit on the word train, we now have 54 documents that hit on the train or training, trainer, trained. If I put it another asterisk or wildcard beforehand as well, now it's going to have any variation. It could have the just regular word train. It could have strain, straining, retrain, retraining. And so this should be even more as we go from 54 to 70 documents. So you can use this to kind of help with identifying variations of search terms that you're looking for when running searches and cast a wider net.